Long before vending machines, samurai, or Studio Ghibli, there was nothing, not even a polite nothing, just a vast, swirling chaos, like the universe spilled its miso and forgot to clean it up. From this primordial broth, the first Japanese gods emerged, quietly, briefly, then they vanished. No drama, just a cosmic cameo. Then came Izanagi and Izanami, the mythological couple tasked with creating the world. Their first assignment, stir the ocean with a jeweled spear. When they did, salty drops fell back and formed the first island, Onogoro. Translation? It formed itself, which is mythological speak for oops. That worked. They got married by walking around a pillar. Izanami spoke first. Oops again. Their first child was a leech. Not ideal. So they tried again, properly this time, and created the islands of Japan. Things were going great until they birthed the fire god. Izanami died from the burns. Izanagi, heartbroken, went to the underworld to get her back. She warned him not to look. He looked. She had decomposed. Maggots, thunder gods, screaming. He ran. To block her pursuit, he rolled a boulder across the entrance to Yomi, the land of the dead. First mythological breakup. Complete. Then he bathed. And from that bath came 3 new gods. Amaterasu, the Sun Goddess, left eye. Tsukuyomi, the Moon God, right eye. Susanoo, the Storm God, nose. Yes, in Japanese mythology, you can wash your face and accidentally create the celestial hierarchy. And before we begin, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more sleepy mythology, and let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The gods are always curious. After Izanagi's dramatic escape from the underworld, complete with screaming thunder gods and a giant boulder, he was in desperate need of a bath, not just to wash off the underworld grime, but to purify his soul. Because in Japanese mythology, spiritual hygiene is just as important as physical hygiene, especially after a breakup with a death goddess. So, Izanagi waded into a river and began his purification ritual. He scrubbed. He rinsed. He probably sighed a lot. And as he washed his face, something extraordinary happened. From his left eye came Amaterasu, the radiant goddess of the sun. She was warm, luminous, and responsible, like the eldest sibling who always remembers birthdays. From his right eye came Tsukuyomi, the moon god, cool, calm, and distant, the kind of deity who reads poetry by moonlight and never texts back. And from his nose came Susanoo, the storm god, loud, impulsive, and emotionally unpredictable. Basically, the mythological equivalent of a toddler with thunder powers. These 3 became the celestial siblings who would shape the world. Amaterasu ruled the heavens and brought light to the land. Tsukuyomi governed the night and kept things mysterious. And Susanoo, well, Susanoo had some issues. He didn't want to rule the seas, as assigned. He wanted to stay in heaven and cause trouble. He cried so loudly that rivers overflowed. He destroyed rice fields. He threw tantrums, and eventually, he made Amaterasu so upset that she locked herself in a cave. But that's a story for the next chapter. For now, the world had its sun, its moon, and its storms, all born from one very dramatic bath. The siblings who lit up the sky, stirred the seas, and gave mythology its most chaotic family dynamic. After stirring the cosmic soup and creating the islands of Japan, Izanagi and Izanami were feeling pretty accomplished. They had invented geography. They had invented marriage. They had even invented leech children. which, while not ideal, still counted as divine effort. But then came the fire god. His name was Kagutsuchi, and his birth was fiery, so fiery, in fact, that Izanami was fatally burned during childbirth. Yes, even gods in Japanese mythology can die, and when Izanami passed away, she descended into Yomi, the land of the dead, a place with no sunlight, no sushi, and very poor customer service. Izanagi was devastated. He had lost his partner, his co-creator, and the only person who understood his spear-stirring technique. So, he did what any grieving god might do. He grabbed his courage, held his breath, and descended into the underworld to bring her back. Yomi was not a cheerful place. It was dark, damp, and filled with thunder gods who looked like they hadn't slept in centuries. Izanagi found Izanami, but she warned him, "Don't look at me. I'm negotiating with the underworld bureaucracy. Just wait." But Izanagi was impatient and curious, and possibly a little dramatic. So he lit a torch and peeked. What he saw was not ideal. Izanami had begun to decompose. Her body was crawling with maggots. Her eyes glowed with fury. And the thunder gods were not pleased with the breach of privacy. Izanagi screamed. Izanami screamed. The thunder gods screamed. And then Izanagi ran. He sprinted out of Yomi, pursued by his now vengeful wife and a horde of underworld enforcers. To block their path, he rolled a massive boulder across the entrance to the underworld. And just like that, the first mythological breakup was complete. Heartbroken and covered in underworld grime, Izanagi decided he needed a bath. Not just any bath, a purification ritual. He washed himself in a river, scrubbing away the spiritual residue of death. And as he washed his face, something remarkable happened. From his left eye came Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess. From his right eye came Tsukuyomi, the cool and distant moon god. From his nose came Susanoo, the stormy and unpredictable god of chaos. Yes, in Japanese mythology, you can wash your face and accidentally create the celestial hierarchy. And so ends the tale of divine love, tragic death, and one very awkward underworld visit. Izanagi was alone, but the world was now filled with light, moonlight, and thunderclouds, thanks to a bath, a boulder, and a broken heart. Now that the celestial siblings, Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo, had entered the scene, the world had light, moonlight, and storms. But harmony? Not so much. Amaterasu, the sun goddess, was radiant and responsible. She lit up the heavens and kept things orderly. Tsukuyomi, the moon god, was quiet and distant, like a poet who only speaks in metaphors. And Susanoo, well, Susanoo was a walking thundercloud with emotional turbulence and a flair for destruction. He didn't want to rule the seas, as assigned. He wanted to stay in heaven and cause trouble. He cried so loudly that rivers overflowed. He destroyed rice fields. He tore up sacred spaces. And then, in a moment of divine chaos, he flung a flayed horse into Amaterasu's weaving hall. Yes, a flayed horse into a weaving hall. It was not a good day. One of Amaterasu's attendants died from the shock. Amaterasu, overwhelmed and furious, did what any sun goddess might do when her brother ruins everything. She locked herself in a cave. This was no ordinary cave. It was the Amano Iwato, the heavenly rock cave. And when Amaterasu shut herself inside, the world went dark. No sunlight, no warmth, just gloom and confusion. Crops withered, people stumbled around, the gods panicked, so they held a divine emergency meeting. Their solution? Throw a party. Outside the cave, the gods gathered. They built a stage. They brought sacred objects. And most importantly, they called on Ame no Uzume, the goddess of dawn and mirth. She danced. She laughed. She performed a routine so wild and hilarious that the gods roared with laughter. Amaterasu, curious about the noise, peeked out. The gods held up a mirror and a jewel, two of the three sacred treasures, and said, "Look, there's a goddess even more radiant than you." Amaterasu, flattered and intrigued, stepped out of the cave. Instantly, light returned to the world. The sun was back. The party worked. Susanoo, meanwhile, was banished from heaven. Time out for the storm god, celestial hide and seek, and the world's first mythological dance party. All because one goddess needed a break, and one god needed boundaries. After being banished from heaven for flinging a flayed horse into his sister's weaving hall. Yes, that actually happened. Susanoo, the storm god, found himself wandering the earthly realm, alone, moody, and probably muttering to himself about how no one appreciated his creative energy. Eventually, he descended to the province of Izumo, a misty land of rivers, mountains, and legends waiting to happen. There he met an elderly couple, weeping beside their daughter. Her name was Kushinada Hime, and she was their last surviving child. You see, every year, a terrible creature came down from the mountains. Yamata no Orochi, an 8-headed, 8-tailed dragon the size of 8 nightmares. Each year, it demanded one of their daughters. And now, only Kushinada Hime remained. Susanoo, sensing an opportunity for redemption and perhaps a little romance, offered to slay the dragon in exchange for Kushinada Haime's hand in marriage. The parents agreed, probably because storm god with a sword sounded better than dragon with 8 mouths. But Susanoo didn't charge in swinging. No, he had a plan. A sleepy, sneaky, sake-fueled plan. He instructed the couple to brew 8 vats of the strongest rice wine they could manage. Then, he built 8 platforms, placed a vat on each, and waited. When Yamata no Orochi arrived, all 8 heads sniffed the air, smelled the sake, and, like any respectable mythical beast, got absolutely hammered. Once the dragon was thoroughly drunk and snoring, Susanoo struck. He sliced off each head, one by one, until the beast was no more. And inside the dragon's tail, he found something unexpected. A sword. Not just any sword. This was the legendary Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the grass-cutting sword, one of the 3 sacred treasures of Japan. Susanoo presented the sword to his sister Amaterasu as a peace offering. It was a divine, I'm sorry for the horse thing gift. And it worked. Sort of. He married Kushinada Hime, settled down for a while, and stopped flinging livestock. Progress, a drunken dragon, and a sword that would one day become a symbol of imperial power. All because someone finally gave Susanoo a chance to be the hero, and a dragon who couldn't hold its liquor now that the sun goddess Amaterasu had returned from her cave, and the storm god Susanoo had gone off to slay dragons and redeem himself. It was time for the Moon God Tsukuyomi to step into the spotlight. Tsukuyomi was quiet, mysterious, the kind of deity who probably wrote haiku in the dark and never showed up to parties on time. He ruled the night with a calm, silvery glow and didn't cause nearly as much drama as his siblings. Until dinner. One day, Amaterasu sent Tsukuyomi to represent her at a banquet hosted by Uke Mochi, the goddess of food. It was a divine dinner party, And Ukemochi had a very special talent. She could produce food from her body. Yes, from her mouth, nose, and other places we won't mention in a bedtime story. She served rice, fish, and delicacies, all conjured from her own form. It was magical. It was generous. It was unsettling. Tsukuyomi, horrified by the method of food preparation, did what no guest should ever do. He killed the host. Yes, he killed the goddess of food. At dinner, over plating technique. When Amaterasu heard what happened, she was furious. She declared that she would never speak to Tsukuyomi again, ever, and thus the sun and moon were permanently separated. That's why, in Japanese mythology, the sun and moon never appear in the sky together. It's not astronomy. It's a divine sibling feud over dinner etiquette. The food goddess who tried her best, and the celestial breakup that left the sky forever divided. After the Sun Goddess Amaterasu emerged from her cave and restored light to the world, she looked around and thought, this place could use some management. The earth was beautiful, yes, but it was also chaotic, noisy, and full of yokai who didn't follow the rules. So she decided to send someone down to organize things. Not just any someone. Her grandson, Ninigi no Mikoto, a divine intern with glowing credentials and a celestial mission. Bring order, peace, and maybe a little sparkle to the earthly realm. But Amaterasu didn't send him empty-handed. She gave him 3 sacred items: a mirror to reflect truth and wisdom, a sword to protect and defend, a jewel to symbolize benevolence and connection. These became known as the 3 sacred treasures of Japan, and they weren't just fancy accessories. They were symbols of imperial authority. Basically, the mythological starter pack for ruling a nation. Ninigi descended from the heavens to Takachiho, a misty mountain in Kyushu, where the clouds hang low and legends like to linger. He brought light, law, and a divine family tree that would eventually lead to Japan's first emperor. And so, the heavenly bloodline began. Gods became ancestors, ancestors became rulers, and mythology quietly merged with history. It was a peaceful transition. No wars, no dragons, just a gentle descent, a sacred mirror, and a grandmother who believed in delegation. And so ends the tale of the heavenly descendants, where divine management met earthly ambition, and one grandson became the bridge between gods and mortals. After Ninigi no Mikoto, grandson of the sun goddess Amaterasu, descended from the heavens with a mirror, a sword, and a jewel, the divine family tree began to grow roots in the earthly realm. Generations passed, legends softened into lullabies, and eventually, a boy named Chimu was born. Chimu wasn't just any boy. He was a descendant of the gods, with sunlight in his veins and destiny in his backpack. He would become the first emperor of Japan, but not before taking a very long, very sleepy journey. His mission? Unite the land, bring peace, establish a throne, and do it all while following the guidance of a divine crow named Yatagarasu. Yes, a 3-legged crow. Because in Japanese mythology, birds are often wiser than people. Jimu's journey was slow and deliberate. He traveled eastward, through forests thick with mist and mountains that whispered old secrets. He faced resistance from local clans, confusion from the terrain, and the occasional yokai who popped up like mythological potholes. But he pressed on, guided by the crow and the belief that his lineage was sacred. At one point, his forces were nearly defeated. The terrain was unfamiliar, and morale was low. But then Yatagarasu appeared, 3-legged, glowing and oddly punctual, and led Jimmu through the mountains to safer ground. It was the mythological equivalent of turning on GPS. Eventually, Jimmu reached Yamato, a fertile region where the sun seemed to shine just a little brighter. There, he established his rule, not with conquest, but with calm authority. He became the first emperor, linking the divine past to the human present. And so, the imperial line began, a sleepy march from heaven to earth, from myth to monarchy. Jimmu's story became the foundation of Japan's national identity, wrapped in legend, crowned with sunlight, and guided by a bird who never needed directions. And so ends the tale of Jimmu, the boy who followed a crow, carried the weight of the gods, and built a throne where dreams could rest. In the world of Japanese mythology, power doesn't come from golden thrones or booming voices. It comes from three objects: quiet, elegant, and deeply symbolic. They are known as the three sacred treasures: the mirror, the sword, and the jewel. These aren't just shiny things you'd find in a treasure chest. They're the spiritual foundation of Japan's imperial lineage, said to have been handed down from the gods themselves. Think of them as the original divine starter pack. Less about bling, more about balance. Let's start with the mirror, called Yata no Kagami. This wasn't just for checking your hair. It symbolized wisdom and self-reflection. According to legend, it was the very mirror used to lure Amaterasu out of her cave when she plunged the world into darkness. She peeked out, saw her own radiant reflection, and thought, "Who is that glowing goddess?" The mirror reminded her of her own light and of her responsibility to the world. Next came the sword, Kusanagi no Tsurugi, which means grass-cutting sword. It was discovered by Susanoo inside the tail of the 8-headed dragon he slayed. He offered it to Amaterasu as a peace gift, because nothing says sorry for the horse incident like a magical blade. The sword represents valor and courage, the strength to protect and to lead. And finally, the jewel, Yasakani no Magatama, a curved bead, smooth and mysterious, symbolizing benevolence and connection. It's the softest of the three treasures, but perhaps the most powerful. It reminds rulers to lead with compassion, not just strength. Together, these three treasures were given to Ninigi no Mikoto when he descended from the heavens to bring order to the world. They've been passed down through generations, not just as symbols of authority, but as reminders of what true leadership means: clarity, courage, and kindness. Even today, the three sacred treasures are said to be part of the Japanese imperial regalia. Their exact locations are kept secret, and few have ever seen them, but their meaning endures, quietly, like a whisper from the gods. And so ends the tale of the mirror, the sword, and the jewel. Not just objects, but ideals. Not just treasures, but truths. In the world of Japanese mythology, not every creature is elegant, mysterious, or wise. Some are loud, some are rude, and some show up uninvited, eat all the snacks, and knock over the furniture. These are the Oni, Japan's ogres, demons, and professional party crashers. Oni are big, really big, towering figures with wild hair, sharp horns, and skin that ranges from red to blue to don't ask. They wear tiger skin loincloths, swing iron clubs, and have a laugh that sounds like thunder rolling down a mountain. They're not subtle. In old stories, Oni are often the villains, stealing, stomping, and scaring villagers. They live in remote mountains, haunted caves, and occasionally in the hearts of people who've let their worst impulses take over. Because in Japanese folklore, oni aren't just monsters. They're metaphors for anger, greed, and chaos. But here's the twist. Not all oni are evil. Some are reformed, some are misunderstood, and some just want to be invited to the party instead of crashing it. Which brings us to Setsubun, the annual bean throwing festival. Every February, families across Japan perform a ritual to drive away bad spirits and invite good fortune. The method? Throwing roasted soybeans at the oni. Someone puts on an oni mask, stomps around the house, and the rest of the family shouts, Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi. Demons out, good fortune in. Then they pelt the oni with beans, gently, sleepily, sometimes with giggles. It's like a mythological food fight with spiritual benefits. After the bean barrage, everyone eats the same number of beans as their age, plus one for luck. It's crunchy, symbolic, and surprisingly satisfying. But oni aren't the only party crashers in Japanese folklore. There are tengu, mountain spirits with long noses and a love for martial arts. There are namahage, winter demons who knock on doors and ask if children have been behaving. And there are noparabo, faceless ghosts who show up in crowds and quietly ruin your day. These creatures remind us that not all chaos is bad. Sometimes it's just a little noisy. Sometimes it's a lesson. And sometimes it's a red-faced ogre who needs a handful of beans and a nap. And so ends the tale of Oni and other party crashers, where folklore meets fun, and even the scariest monsters get politely escorted out with snacks. High in the misty mountains of Japan, where the wind whistles through ancient pines and the clouds hang low like sleepy curtains, live the tengu, mysterious beings with feathers, pride, and a flair for mischief. Tengu are part bird, part human, and part don't mess with me. They often have red faces, long noses, and wings that let them glide silently through the forest. Some wear robes, like wandering monks. Others carry fans that can stir up storms or blow away entire villages. They are not subtle. In old tales, tengu were feared as troublemakers. They kidnapped monks, tricked travelers, and challenged arrogant samurai to duels they rarely won. But over time, their reputation softened. They became protectors of sacred forests, guardians of mountain temples, and occasional mentors to those who dared to climb high enough. One famous tengu tale involves a proud warrior who thought he was the best swordsman in the land. He climbed a mountain to prove it, only to be humbled by a tengu, who taught him that true strength comes from patience, not pride. The tengu didn't just fight, he taught, and then vanished into the mist like a feathered ghost. Tengu are deeply tied to nature. They live in places where humans rarely tread, and they don't take kindly to arrogance or disrespect. If you wander into their territory with a loud voice or a selfish heart, you might find your belongings rearranged, or your shoes filled with pine cones. But if you come with humility, you might just learn something, a lesson in silence, a whisper of wind, a glimpse of a red mask disappearing into the trees. And so ends the tale of the tengu, mountain spirits who mix mischief with wisdom and remind us that sometimes the best teachers have wings. In the high forested mountains of Japan, where the mist clings to the trees and the wind hums like an old lullaby, live the tengu, mysterious, proud, and just a little bit theatrical. These beings are part bird, part human, and entirely unpredictable. Tengu are often described with crimson faces, long noses like beaks, and sharp, watchful eyes. Some have wings and can soar between mountain tops. Others walk like monks, dressed in robes, carrying fans that can summon gusts of wind or knock a man off his feet. They are the guardians of sacred peaks and the self-appointed referees of human arrogance. In the oldest stories, Tengu were feared. They were blamed for forest fires, missing travelers, and monks who strayed from their vows. They were said to possess people, whisper lies, and led the proud astray. But as centuries passed, their image softened. Mischief turned to mentorship. Malice gave way to mystery. One tale tells of a young swordsman who climbed a mountain to challenge the Tengu, believing himself invincible. The Tengu, amused, accepted the duel. But instead of striking him down, they disarmed him with ease, then offered to train him. The lesson? Pride is heavy, and humility is the path to true strength. Tengu don't like noise. They don't like arrogance. And they really don't like people who chop down trees without asking. But if you enter their woods with respect, if you bow to the shrine, walk softly, and listen to the wind, you might just feel their presence. A rustle in the branches, a shadow overhead, a faint chuckle on the breeze. They are tricksters, yes, but they are also teachers. They remind us that nature is alive, that pride is a heavy burden, and that sometimes the most powerful beings are the ones who choose to remain unseen. And so ends the tale of the Tengu, keepers of the mountains, dancers on the wind, and masters of feathered mischief. In the quiet corners of Japanese folklore, where the wind rustles paper doors and lanterns flicker without warning, there dwell spirits known as yurei, ghosts with unfinished business, lingering sorrow, and a tendency to hold a grudge. Unlike the playful kitsune or the mischievous tengu, yurei are not here for tricks or lessons. They are the echoes of human pain, souls who died with strong emotions, still clinging to them, like wet silk, love, rage, betrayal, grief. These feelings tether them to the world of the living, long after their bodies have turned to ash. Yurei often appear in flowing white funeral robes, with long black hair that drapes over their faces like curtains of mourning. Their hands dangle limply at their sides. Their feet never touch the ground. They drift. They weep. They wait. One of the most famous yurei is Oiwa, a woman betrayed by her husband, poisoned, and left disfigured. Her spirit returned, not as a monster, but as a sorrowful, vengeful presence. Her story has been retold for centuries, in kabuki plays and ghost stories. Her face half-shrouded, her voice a whisper that chills the spine. But not all yurei are angry. Some are simply lost. A mother searching for her child, a lover waiting by the sea, a samurai who died before his final battle. They appear in dreams, in mirrors, in the corner of your eye, when you're not quite sure what you saw. To help these spirits move on, people perform rituals. They light incense, they offer rice, they speak softly to the dead, reminding them that they are remembered, that they are loved, that they can rest now. Because in Japanese belief, death is not the end. It's a doorway, and sometimes that door creaks open just enough for a spirit to slip through, carrying with it a memory, a message, or a final sigh. And so ends the tale of the yurei, ghosts with grudges, hearts full of longing, and footsteps that never quite touch the ground. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, nestled between green hills and whispering rivers, an old woman went down to the stream to wash clothes. As she scrubbed and rinsed, something round and pink floated toward her, a giant peach, bobbing gently in the current like a sleepy boat. She brought it home to her husband, thinking they'd slice it up for dinner. But when they opened the peach, they found something unexpected. A baby boy, smiling, healthy, and very much not a fruit. They named him Momotaro, which means peach boy. And though he was small, he grew strong and kind, with a heart as golden as the sunrise. Years passed, and Momotaro learned of a terrible problem. A band of Oni, those wild, red-faced ogres, were causing trouble on a distant island. They stole food, frightened villagers, and generally behaved like mythological hooligans. So Momotaro decided to stop them. His parents packed him rice dumplings for the journey. Kibidango, sweet and chewy, perfect for sharing. And as he walked toward the coast, he met 3 animals, a dog, a monkey, and a pheasant. Each one challenged him, tested him, and eventually joined him, won over by his courage and his dumplings. Together, they formed a parade, not a loud one, not a flashy one, just a determined little group marching toward the island of ogres, with Momotaro at the front and friendship at their heels. When they reached the island, they didn't storm the gates. They worked together. The monkey climbed, the pheasant flew, the dog barked orders, and Momotaro led the charge, not with rage, but with resolve. They defeated the Oni, reclaimed the stolen treasures, and returned home with peace in their pockets and stories in their hearts. Momotaro became a legend, not because he was born from a peach, but because he believed in kindness, teamwork, and the power of a well-timed dumpling. And so ends the tale of Momotaro and the Peachy Parade, a story of sweetness, strength, and the quiet magic of sharing snacks with friends. Long ago, in a quiet forest, where the bamboo grew tall and the wind hummed lullabies through the leaves, there lived an old bamboo cutter. He was humble, kind, and spent his days gently slicing stalks of green to make baskets and lanterns. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the trees, he noticed something strange. A single stalk of bamboo glowed softly, as if lit from within. Curious, he cut it open, and inside, he found a tiny girl, no bigger than his thumb, wrapped in light. He brought her home, and she grew quickly into a radiant young woman with hair like midnight and eyes like moonlight. He named her Kaguya-hime, the shining princess. She was graceful, gentle, and so beautiful that suitors came from far and wide, hoping to win her heart. But Kaguya-hime was not interested in marriage. She gave each suitor impossible tasks, fetching treasures that didn't exist, proving loyalty through riddles and quests. One by one, they failed, not out of malice, but because her heart was never truly theirs to win. As seasons passed, the bamboo cutter and his wife grew more attached to her. She brought joy to their home, laughter to their evenings, and a quiet magic to their lives. But sometimes she would gaze at the moon with a sadness she couldn't explain. Then, one night, she revealed the truth. She was not of this world. She had come from the moon, sent to live among humans for a time, and now her people were coming to take her back. The bamboo cutter wept. He begged her to stay, but when the moon chariot descended, glowing and silent, Kaguya-hime stepped aboard. She left behind a letter and a small vial of the elixir of immortality. But her parents, too heartbroken to live forever without her, burned it. And so, the Moon Princess returned to the sky, leaving behind only memories, a glowing legend, and a forest that still whispers her name. And so ends the tale of the bamboo cutter and the moon princess, a story of love, longing, and the gentle sorrow of letting go. Long ago, in a quiet seaside village where the waves whispered secrets and the sand held stories, lived a kind fisherman named Urashima Taro. He was gentle, patient, and known for rescuing tangled crabs and apologizing to seaweed when he stepped on it. One day, while walking along the shore, Urashima saw a group of children teasing a small turtle. They poked it, flipped it, and laughed. Urashima stepped in, scolded the children, and gently released the turtle back into the sea. The next morning, as he cast his fishing line, something unusual happened. The same turtle surfaced beside his boat, only now it could talk. It thanked him for his kindness and offered him a ride to the Dragon Palace beneath the sea, a place of wonder, music, and eternal calm. Urashima, understandably surprised but curious, climbed onto the turtle's back, and just like that, he was off, gliding through the waves like a sleepy Uber ride to another world. The Ryugujo, or Dragon Palace, was breathtaking. Coral towers shimmered like gemstones. Fish danced in formation. Sea creatures played music on shells and driftwood. And there, waiting to greet him, was Princess Otohime, radiant and serene. She welcomed him with open arms and invited him to stay. Days passed like dreams. There was no hunger, no sorrow, no clocks, just laughter, beauty, and the gentle rhythm of the sea. But eventually, Urashima missed his village. He thanked the princess and prepared to leave. As a parting gift, she gave him a mysterious box called a tamatebako, with one warning: never open it. He returned to shore, expecting to find familiar faces and old friends. But everything had changed. His house was gone. The village was different. No one recognized his name. He asked around and learned the truth. 300 years had passed. Confused and heartbroken, Urashima opened the box. A puff of white smoke escaped, and in an instant, he aged. His hair turned silver, his back bent, and the years he had skipped caught up with him all at once. Some say he vanished into the sea. Others say he became a crane and flew into the clouds. But all agree, his kindness was real, his journey unforgettable, and his story a gentle warning about time, magic, and unopened boxes. And so ends the tale of Urashima Taro and the Turtle Uber, a story of compassion, underwater kingdoms, and the quiet cost of stepping outside time. In the forests of Japan, where the moss grows thick and the trees lean in, like old friends sharing secrets, lives a creature unlike any other, the tanuki. Not quite a raccoon, not quite a dog. The tanuki is a magical animal spirit with a round belly, a sly grin, and a love for mischief. In Japanese folklore, tanuki are shapeshifters, tricksters, and most importantly, entertainers. They can transform into anything: a teapot, a monk, a pile of gold coins that turns into leaves the moment you try to spend it. But their favorite trick of all? Belly drumming. Yes, belly drumming. A tanuki's belly is not just soft and round, it's an instrument. With a few hearty slaps, they can make it sound like a taiko drum, echoing through the woods like a festival in the trees. Some say they use it to summon rain. Others say it's just for fun. Either way, it is hard to stay serious when a tanuki is thumping out a rhythm on its own stomach. In one old tale, a tanuki disguised itself as a monk to sneak into a village feast. It ate all the rice cakes, drank all the sake, and when the villagers caught on, it ran off laughing, leaping into the forest and drumming its belly like a farewell song. But tanuki aren't cruel. Their tricks are rarely mean-spirited. They're more like the class clown of the spirit world, always looking for a laugh, a snack, or a new disguise. They remind people not to take life too seriously, that sometimes a little silliness is sacred. You'll often see statues of tanuki outside shops and restaurants in Japan, round-bellied, wide-eyed, wearing straw hats, and carrying sake bottles. They're symbols of good luck, prosperity, and the kind of joy that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. And so ends the tale of the tanuki, shapeshifter, prankster, and master of belly percussion, a creature who teaches us that laughter is a kind of magic, and sometimes the forest throws a party just because it can. Not all gods are thunder throwers or dragon slayers. Some prefer tea to turmoil, naps to battles, and laughter to lightning bolts. In Japanese mythology, the divine realm isn't just filled with solemn deities. It is also home to a few who are delightfully laid back. Let's begin with Hote, the god of happiness and abundance. You've probably seen him, round belly, wide grin, carrying a cloth sack over his shoulder. He's one of the 7 lucky gods, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. Hote wanders from town to town, handing out gifts, cracking jokes, and occasionally falling asleep under a tree. His belly is said to be a symbol of joy, and rubbing it is believed to bring good luck. He's not a warrior, he's a walking smile. Then there's Ebisu, the patron of fishermen, merchants, and anyone who enjoys a good meal. He is often shown holding a fishing rod in one hand and a giant sea bream in the other. Ebisu is cheerful, slightly hard of hearing, and famously unbothered by the chaos of the world. He's the kind of god who'd rather grill his fish than fight over it. And let's not forget Fukurokuju, the god of wisdom and longevity, with a forehead so tall it could host a tea ceremony. He's calm, slow-moving, and always accompanied by a crane or a turtle, animals that, like him, are in no rush to get anywhere. These gods don't roar, they chuckle. They don't command armies. They bless gardens, kitchens, and cozy inns. They remind us that divinity doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears sandals and carries snacks. In a world of storms and swords, the laughing gods and lazy deities offer something softer, contentment. They teach us that joy is sacred, that rest is holy, and that sometimes the most divine thing you can do is take a nap. And so ends the tale of the laughing gods and lazy deities, gentle spirits who remind us that peace, pleasure, and a good sense of humor are just as powerful as thunder. In the heart of Japan, nestled between bustling cities and sleepy forests, stand thousands of Shinto shrines, quiet sanctuaries where the sacred and the everyday gently overlap. Some are grand, with towering torii gates and long stone paths. Others are small, tucked behind rice fields or hidden in alleyways no bigger than a garden shed. But all of them hum with a kind of stillness, a presence that feels like the world holding its breath. These shrines are home to the kami, spirits, deities, and forces of nature that dwell in everything from mountains to rivers, from foxes to firewood. Kami are not gods in the Western sense. They don't demand worship or thunder from the skies. They simply exist, quietly, respectfully, in the things we often overlook. There's a kami in the wind that rustles the leaves, a kami in the stream that cools your feet, a kami in the rice you eat, the broom you sweep with, even the old tree that leans just slightly toward the sun. Shinto teaches that the world is alive with spirit and that reverence begins with noticing. Shrines are places to do just that. You approach slowly, bow at the torii gate, and walk the path with intention. At the entrance, you wash your hands and mouth, not just to clean, but to purify. Then you offer a coin, ring the bell, bow twice, clap twice, and bow once more. It's a ritual of rhythm, a dance of respect, a moment of connection. But shrines aren't just for ceremony, they're for rest. In the shade of a shrine, time softens, the air feels cooler, the cicadas buzz like lullabies. You might see an old man napping on a bench, a cat curled up beside a stone lantern, or a child chasing butterflies between sacred trees. Even the kami seem to nap here, content, unbothered, watching the world with half-closed eyes. There's a phrase in Japanese, shinrin yoku, or forest bathing. It means to immerse yourself in nature, not with purpose, but with presence. Shrines are the spiritual version of that. You don't go to solve problems. You go to sit, to breathe, to remember that you're part of something vast and gentle. Some shrines are dedicated to specific kami, like Inari, the fox spirit of agriculture and prosperity, whose shrines are marked by rows of red gates and stone foxes with keys in their mouths. Others honor Tenjin, the kami of scholarship, where students leave offerings before exams, and some are simply places where the land itself is sacred, no name needed. At night, shrines become even quieter. Lanterns glow softly. The wind carries the scent of pine and incense. And if you listen closely, you might hear the kami snoring, not loudly, just a soft, sacred snooze, like the earth itself taking a nap. And so ends the tale of shrines, spirits, and sacred snoozing, a story of quiet reverence, gentle rhythms, and the kind of peace that doesn't need words. Once upon a time, Japanese mythology lived in the hush of temple courtyards and the rustle of paper scrolls. Stories were passed from lips to ears, from brush to parchment, from grandmother to grandchild. They were told by firelight, painted on folding screens, and carved into the wooden beams of shrines. Gods, spirits, and monsters moved through the world like wind through rice fields, present, powerful, and deeply woven into daily life. But time, like a river, never stops flowing, and the stories, they didn't vanish, they adapted. Today, mythology in Japan lives not only in sacred spaces, but in the glow of screens, in anime, manga, video games, novels, films, and even vending machines that sell fox-shaped cookies. The ancient gods haven't retired, they've gone digital. Take Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess. She appears in video games as a white wolf named Okami, guiding players through puzzles and battles with divine grace. Her mirror, her sword, and her jewel, once sacred regalia, now shimmer as magical items in fantasy quests. Tengu, once feared of mountain spirits, flap their wings in animated series, challenging arrogant heroes with riddles and swordplay. Tanuki, the mischievous belly drummers of folklore, pop up in commercials, bouncing to jingles and selling noodles with a wink. Even the sorrowful yurei, ghosts with unfinished business, haunt modern horror films and urban legends, their pale faces flickering across phone screens and subway tunnels. These stories are retold, reshaped, and reimagined. A manga might cast Momotaro as a space explorer, battling alien Oni with peach-powered gadgets. A film might explore the tale of Urashima Taro, through virtual reality, where time slips and memory fades in digital waves. The settings change, the costumes evolve, but the heart of the stories remains. They still ask the same questions. What does it mean to be brave? To be kind? To be human? In a world filled with spirits, shrines still stand, quiet and timeless. Even as city lights glow around them, people still bow at Torii gates, leave offerings, and whisper prayers. Children still hear stories of foxes who become women, of umbrellas that come to life, of gods who laugh and nap and occasionally meddle. Even in the busiest corners of Tokyo, you might find a tiny shrine tucked between buildings, a pocket of peace where the kami still listen, and somewhere, in a quiet room, a child watches an animated fox leap across the screen and feels something ancient stir. Modern Japan doesn't treat mythology as a relic. It treats it as a rhythm, a pulse, a bridge between the sacred and the everyday, between scrolls and screens. And so ends our journey through the myths of Japan, from gods and ogres to peaches and belly drums. Whether carved in wood or coated in pixels, these stories continue to glow, softly, like lanterns in the night. So close your eyes now. Let the stories settle, like mist on a mountain. The gods are resting, the spirits are quiet, and the tales will still be here when you wake. Good night.